11:30. Joining me today, we have Gary Teal, Executive Director of the Travis County GOP, and Tara Pohlmeyer, a Communications Associate for Progress Texas. Thank you both for joining us today. So I think the big news is yesterday, the Council on American Islamic Relations announced it's filing a lawsuit to challenge Texas's anti-BDS law. Now, that law bans state agencies from doing business with companies that boycott Israel. A speech pathologist who was contracted to work with Pflugerville ISD says a clause in the contract stating she does not now and will not later boycott Israel violates her First Amendment right to free speech. Now, when Governor Greg Abbott signed this law back in 2017, it was actually the first law that he signed of the session. He said Israel's #1 trading partner in the United States is Texas, and the law was meant to reaffirm the state's support for the people of Israel. And so let's start with you, Gary. Talk to me a little bit about why you feel it's necessary for Texas to have a law like this.
Well, it's not necessary, but I think that it also does send the message that Texas enjoys that business relationship and wants to keep it in place. That's all.
And Tara, what are your thoughts on this? Because some people say that the state shouldn't be getting involved in this type of legislation.
Yes, and I think this is really an example of the state siding with a foreign government rather than the actual people of Texas. And so we do believe that this is a violation of the constitutional rights of this woman and her right to free speech and her right to express herself, and really does put a dampening on that constitutional right.
Gary, your thoughts there?
I don't think that we're doing anything to infringe her speech rights. I think that if they wanted to test that aspect of the law, then she could have done what to do in terms of writing letters to the editor or forming clubs or anything. If the state had come after her, then that would be an interesting question as to whether or not it should do that. But this is not the case. She has not been discriminated against. I think it's a bad thing that her services have been lost to the school district. I wish she had just kept doing what she was doing, and I think everybody would have been better off.
So I think one of the things that's interesting about that point, though, is she is of Palestinian descent and says that she, in good conscience, didn't feel like it was okay for her to sign that.
Well, I think that was her decision, and so she opted out of that job. I know that there are things that I can't say publicly and keep my job, and I think that's true of a lot of people. It's not an infringement of my free speech rights. I can choose to either keep the job or not have the job.
Your thoughts there?
I think this is an infringement of her free speech rights, and I do agree that this is a disservice to the students of Central Texas who are no longer getting those services. She specifically served an area that has a growing Asian American population and is really an area where I think her services would be necessary. And so to have her all of a sudden not be able to provide those services because the legislature and the government is deciding that they want to restrict her beliefs and get her to sign something that prevents her from doing her job, it shouldn't be the place of the government.
So one thing that's interesting is Texas is not alone. Texas is not the only state to have an anti-BDS law. I believe there are 26 states right now. This is actually coming to be more popular laws to pass.
It's a political thing. It's a function of government, and it's just not true that her beliefs are being restricted. That's a way to phrase it that really sounds very un-American. I don't want my beliefs to be restricted. I don't want anyone to attack me because of something I've said on the street. But this is a function of government. The governor has the ability to bring into Texas, to enter into contracts, to help negotiate those business relationships, and we want the government of Texas to keep the economy vibrant here, and boycotting does not help keep the economy moving. So this is a political issue, and I don't think that this woman's rights to free speech have been violated in any way. This was her decision.
All right, Tara, final thoughts.
I think this is the government siding with another Trump administration way of pushing forward divisive politics instead of coming up with progressive solutions that kind of push Texas into the future. And so we've had a lot of progressive wins specifically at the Texas legislature, and we're excited to see how those play out and how we're able to create more inclusive and appropriate policies that do push us into the future.
All right, well, this is certainly something we're going to be watching. The Attorney General, releasing a statement saying that Texas is in the right and going to plan to fight this. So we will see how it all shakes out. Thank you both for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.